The Lives of the Saints by Father Alban Butler, September 8th, Pope Saint Sergius I. During the prolonged illness of Pope Conan, his archdeacon Paschal offered an enormous sum as a bribe to John the imperial exarch in order to secure his succession to the throne of St. Peter. In 687, when Conan finally died, the exarch kept his word, launched Paschal's nomination, and supported him with a party, most of whose members were opposed to the candidacy of the archpriest Theodore. But in the end, both candidates were disappointed, and the priest Sergius was canonically elected. The exarch John, who traveled to Rome to take care of his interests, agreed to give his approval to the election of Sergius, but not before having received from him the same sum of money that Paschal had offered him. It was not a question of simony, but of extortion. Sergius had been freely and legally elected, and when he was forced to pay, he did so under energetic protests. The man who became pope under such disastrous circumstances was a Syrian, the son of a merchant from Antioch and educated in Palermo. The first years of his pontificate were disturbed by the upheavals caused by the council in Trullo, Concilium Quinisextum, convened in Constantinople for the purpose of supplementing the acts of the Fifth and Sixth Ecumenical Councils with some canons on discipline. 200 bishops were present, all Eastern bishops except one, to approve 102 canons, many of which seemed contrary, if not hostile, to the doctrines and policies of the Western Church. The bad thing about that assembly was that it claimed the rights to approve the decrees, not only for the Church of the East, but also for the Church of the West. Consequently, when Emperor Justinian I sent the acts of the council to Rome for the Pope's signature, Sergius refused to do so. So the emperor in the year 693 sent his personal guard, with a certain Zacharias at his head, to seize the recalcitrant pontiff and take him by force to Constantinople. Pope Sergius appealed to the exarch, while the citizens of Rome, reinforced by troops arrived from Ravenna, gathered a considerable force and made a very impressive demonstration, especially for Zacharias, who was terrified to such an extent that he went to beg protection from Sergius and ran to hide under the Pope's bed. The latter, for his part, went out to reassure the people. We may suppose that he was quite amused by the adventure. But none of them wanted to leave his post near the Holy Father, until the valiant soldier Zacharias left his refuge and, at the head of his guards, departed from the city for Constantinople. There is no doubt that the affair would have had serious consequences for Pope Sergius had it not been for the timely overthrow of Emperor Justinian II shortly thereafter. Neither that pontiff nor any of his successors did anything more for the canons of the Quinisextum than tacitly approve them for the Eastern Church. During the reign of that pontiff, Caedwalla, king of the West Saxons, arrived in Rome, who had abdicated the throne to place himself at the service of the Lord and his eternal kingdom. It was Saint Sergius who baptized him on the Easter Vigil of 689. 5 years later, he consecrated another famous Englishman, Saint Willibrordo, Bishop of Northumbria, and encouraged and helped him to carry out his mission in Friesland. Likewise, it was Saint Sergius who received a delegation of monks sent by Saint Ceolfrith, to whom he granted confirmation of privileges in his abbeys of Wearmouth and Jarrow. In 701, he personally wrote to Saint Ceolfrith to ask him to send that pious servant of God, Bede, priest of your monastery, to Rome because the pontiff needed the advice of wise men. Saint Sergius promised that Bede would be returned at once. But the truth is that he did not go to Rome, and St. Bede himself tells us that he never left his monastery. Sergius was a student of the Roman Schola Cantorum and always maintained an active interest in the liturgy and its music. In particular, as the Liber Pontificalis points out, he was concerned to give instructions that the Agnus Dei should be sung by the clergy and the people when the host is broken during Mass. It was also Saint Sergius who arranged for the Roman Church to celebrate the 4 feasts of Our Lady already observed in Constantinople: the Nativity of the Virgin Mary, her Purification, the Annunciation, and the Dormition. As for his personal character, Saint Sergius can only be judged by his public acts and the traditions of the Church, where he appears, as Alcuin has said, as a saint and most worthy successor of St. Peter, remarkable for his piety. He died in the year 701 and was buried in St. Peter's Cess.